Nier could have solved the Akira case, and not only could he have solved it, he could have done so with ease. Akira, or Auction Kira, real name Minoru Tanaka, is the protagonist of the 2020 Death Note one-shot. He's chosen by Ryuk to use the Death Note since he has the highest IQ scores in all middle school Japan. Ryuk was trying to find another Light Yagami. However, Minoru is not a genocidal lunatic, so he doesn't actually want to kill anyone. Instead, he tells Ryuk to return in 2 years. Once Ryuk returns, Minoru divulges his plan to sell the Death Note. He does so by holding an online auction. He makes Ryuk hold pieces of paper with messages related to the auction in front of the cameras at Sakura TV. He also makes Ryuk travel underground so as not to be detected by those that have touched the notebook in the past. He ends up selling the notebook to the United States for $10 trillion US. To collect the money without detection, he has the US send the money evenly across all Yotsuba bank accounts owned by people under 60. This leads to those that qualify getting around $10 million each. However, through an ass poll, the Shinigami King decides to create a new rule that states that the buyer and seller of the Death Note die upon receiving the notebook or collecting the money. This leads to the death of Akira. As Nier's unironic #1 fan, I'm ashamed. I can't believe he lets a middle school bastard rail him without lifting a finger. Pause. So how could Nier have not only solved this case, but done so and been home in time for dinner? First, let's review what he knows. He figured out that Akira is both young and extremely smart. He also knows that Ryuk can't be too far from the notebook's current owner. While Nier doesn't know anything about Akira beyond this information, he does know crucial information about Ryuk, namely Ryuk's motivations. He knows that Ryuk dropped the notebook back in 2003 because he was bored. But let's say for the sake of argument that he didn't know this. He could have easily figured it out. How? Because of these 3 key pieces of information. Number 1. Ryuk helped Light multiple times throughout the original story. At some point, Nier even figures out that Kira is making the Shinigami lie to him.
In other words, Kira is there in the room, and he's making the Shinigami lie on his behalf.
Whoa, this guy's good. He nailed it.
2. During Light's final moments, going strictly based off of the manga, Ryuk tells Light, "You've eased my boredom for quite a long time, haven't you? It was a lot of fun." 3. Ryuk then kills Light. All of this shows that he had no true allegiance to Light and only helped him because it was entertaining. More importantly, it shows that Ryuk valued Light as a prolonged source of entertainment and was intrigued by his schemes. In other words, he was mostly entertained by Light's intelligence. This would lead Nier to consider that the current Akira being so smart that Nier himself states that if nothing else he wants to meet them may not be a coincidence. For those unconvinced, you have to remember that highly intelligent people operate largely on intuition. Intuition is when you know or understand things without any real reasoning to back it up. However, it goes beyond the gut feeling, since it's more precise than just, for example, I think somebody's staring at me. Take a mathematically gifted person. They might come across a calculus problem and intuitively know how to solve it, what formulas to use, and what steps to take without necessarily having encountered such a problem before. I knew some people like this back in school, so it's not at all unrealistic for Nier to make certain connections that may seem like lucky guesses to the average Joe. And I think in this case, there's enough information for him to soundly arrive at this conclusion. If we go with the idea that Ryuk chose the current owner of the Death Note, then it's likely that he went about it by finding people with verifiable credentials. Therefore, Nier would go about running background checks on all top-scoring middle, high school, and university students in Japan. Remember, he knows Akira is young and in Japan. He checked for both grades and IQ tests. This would lead him to his prime suspect, Minoru Tanaka. Why? Because Minoru is young, currently in high school, has the highest IQ scores in his age group in Japan, and lives only 11 kilometers or 6.8 miles away from the TV station broadcasting Akira's messages. Nier would then send an agent to his house whilst Minoru is in school to see if he can find the Death Note. To avoid such a situation, it's possible that Minoru told Ryuk to keep the Death Note on him at all times. This makes even more sense when you consider how much Minoru actually hates the notebook. However, near the end of the one-shot, we see Minoru hand Ryuk the Death Note when he tells him to piss off out of his life. This indicates that Ryuk was not tasked with keeping it, meaning it's possible that they find it in Minoru's room. Of course, it's also possible that Minoru keeps it hidden on him at all times. Either way, whether they find it or not, they'd install hidden cameras all over the inside and outside of his house to capture footage of Minoru and Ryuk interacting. Upon receiving this evidence, there are many ways they could go about apprehending Minoru. Either they kidnap him on the street like L did with Misa and Mane, or they take a more subtle approach. Given Nier's personality, he would probably favor the latter. This could include placing agents in his room to catch him the next time he returns from school, or taking the Death Note and leaving an actual note in its place telling him to be at a given place at a given time. They could then extract a confession out of him one way or another.
That's right. I am Kira.
And that's it. That's all they would have taken. Within literally 2 to 4 days, depending on how fast they work, Nier would have physical evidence, video evidence, and a personal confession of Akira's identity. If that's not solving the case, then I don't know what is. Of course, there could be a caveat. For example, Minoru could have pulled a Light Yagami and figured out that people had entered his room. However, this wouldn't matter, since they'd already have seen him with Ryuk and may have already found the Death Note if he wasn't keeping it on him. So, while Minoru's plan was a good one, it was not foolproof. And certainly not for what's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. Like, comment, subscribe.